Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Pete. Doing well and excited to check in with Bonnie here today.
Yes. I am super excited, super stoked to have my good friend Bonnie Tinder on. She is the CEO and founder of Raven Intel. You've probably seen the Raven symbol on many of your solution provider, solution SI brands. And yeah, just glad to have you here, Bonnie. We spent a lot of time on the analyst trail, so I thought it'd be great to have you on and share what's going on.
Absolutely. And we get to sit in the same room with so many of these customer conferences and software vendor presentations. So, Pete, it's great to have a one-on-one, and Julie, to have you here as well.
Yeah, no, I love it. You're in a lot of rooms that I'm not in, and I'm sure I'm in some that you're not. And I just love to compare notes and get the pulse really on ERP out there, because I think there's definitely a surge and a rise back in the all-in-one, and there's a lot we could talk about here. So, Julie, want to do the honors?
Yeah, I do. Bonnie, we always ask folks how they got into this space. For you, it's more the broader ERP space than our narrow HR payroll space. But how did you make your way into this? And what do you like or about that keeps you here? Why are you still here?
I grew up in HR, and I spent 25 years of my career embedded in the world of HR technology, implementations, and all of that. I actually started, my first job out of college was implementing payroll for Ceridian. And I mean, you talk about, yeah, exactly, going from the frying pan into the fire.
That's a common theme on this show.
And to this day, it's still the hardest job I have ever had. I don't think that, payroll implementation was what I was best served doing, but I certainly learned a lot and learned a lot of how painful that process is, especially when you have a recent college graduate helping you implement.
Yeah. You were just blind enough not to know what to ask.
Exactly.
They were just before us. So then, then we ran it afterwards. It's crazy too.
That's
Awesome.
right. That's right. And so I actually, when I first started, I was, implementing DOS systems, and then, maybe 6 months later, the first HR-based Windows product came to market, and so I mean that's how old I am. So I remember when. But throughout my career, I've stayed in the HR space. I think what keeps me here, what I like best about it, is that it is a small world, as big as the technology area is, and with all of the new things coming in, new vendors, and all of that. There still is this like sort of family knit community, and if you're in it long enough, you will have worked with the same people you see popping up at all these HR firms. So I always say the world is small and the road is long, and so that's what makes me really enjoy what do is like having so many contacts that I've worked with in the past. Now in what I do at Raven, the reason I started Raven is I wanted to make implementation suck less. Right, it's the absolute most painful part of getting and realizing the value of your software. It's like moving. Everybody wants a new house. Nobody wants to move. And so I wanted to make that move process a lot better for customers and help them to know what they didn't know about implementation and know who the best partners were that were really delivering the best results for clients. And there was nothing that existed, no place that a customer could go and really independently research reviews on implementation. You could read reviews on software, there are a dime a dozen those type of software and user review sites. Nobody though was looking at the implementation, which I saw was the critical part of software satisfaction. I mean, you can buy an amazing piece of software and you will think it is horrendous if you have a bad implementation. So long story short, that's the area nobody was looking at. I wanted to help fix it. Created Raven Intel 8 years ago, and have been not looked back since. So
this is so fun for me because we don't know each other as well as you and Pete know each other. And so the first thing you've already surprised me with is that you started, where you started in HR. I just kind of assume that because you're squarely in this ERP space, a lot of that comes from finance. And so that seems like the easier path or the path more often taken. And so I'm super stoked to, to know that you're going to have this HR lens going into this conversation about ERP and into implementations and so forth. So,
Yeah.
all right. I'm now triply stoked for us to have this
Yeah, I
conversation.
told you we had to have Bonnie on.
Yeah.
Look, I think the reason we're chuckling about you starting in payroll like that is that we've heard that probably multiple times from very high level executives that that's where they actually started, and it always sounds like they just sort of were these unsuspecting victims that got drafted, had no idea what they were getting themselves into, and wow, here it is, right? It's created an opportunity for them to build a career. So
Well,
very cool.
honestly, and it was an amazing opportunity that I had to do it because, I mean, I really, when I started out, I was the youngest implementer they had, right? And yet I got to know the team, and they really shepherded me through the process. One thing that I
Yeah.
did bring was, I was more up to speed on like how to use email, which again, oh my goodness, am I dating myself? But like AOL at that time was like huge. And so this idea that like, oh, I could email my customer as opposed to like typing a letter. I mean, like that was a big deal back.
Revolutionary.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. But on the other hand, oh my goodness, that those 5 years that I had in implementation taught me more about this business than the
Oh
next
yeah.
20 did in terms of like where the real pain points existed and like when the rubber meets the road in terms of like making software real within a company. It's like
Yeah.
I just went through lots of them.
Those projects are formative for everybody at any point in your career. I've told multiple people who I've talked to, reached out and said, "Hey, I'm going to be taking on this really big project in my company, or I'm in charge of this thing now." And I'm like, "It's scary, but you're going to learn
Yeah.
so much, right? You're going to come out the other side very mature from it."
It
So,
makes me think that when we're talking to folks about talent and how, complex payroll and talent has become, you also can't be afraid just to take a go-getter and plug somebody in and let them
yeah,
learn, in that space and coach them into it. Because if you keep waiting for the unicorn or the person that knows they want to be doing that job, you could be sitting on your thumbs for a very
yeah,
long
yeah, right.
And I tell my son who is a junior in college right now, I'm like, and he's computer science. So I'm like,
Mhm.
you might have an idea of sort of what you like, but you really don't know what work is
Yeah,
until you find that job. And maybe it's not like you would not like, I didn't go to college to think, oh, I'm going to be a payroll implementation manager. Nope.
right.
Um, on the other hand, my background was in is mass comm. I wanted to be in journalism and writing and things like that. And I just happened to get this first job, and all of a sudden it opened my eyes to, hey, there's a lot of things about
Yeah,
what I learned in college that I can bring to the table. And then you learn as you go, and in the what you're sort of given in terms of what you need to handle in your work about that particular area, and then it's like this alchemy of what
yeah,
you're good at, your skill set, and then what needs to get done, and
as parents, we should stop coaching our kids to say, like, "What do you want to do?" You have no earthly clue what you want to do. I
a
yeah,
know.
million
None of
times
us.
yes, and if you know what, if you are so pigeonholed into what you think that thing is,
Yeah.
when you're 21 years old, 22 years old and leaving college, you have no idea. What you're looking at is such a fractional part of
yeah,
what the world of work looks like. And so, with my son, I'm like, hey, you got to just keep your eyes open for that company that you get excited
yep,
about, or even more important, that manager who is going to mentor you along the way. I mean, and we're not this is we're kind of getting off topic here, but on the
no,
other hand, it
this is
w-
lovely.
it was the foundational people who poured into me, mentored me in this area that made me who I am today. And I think
Yeah,
even as we talk about, ERP projects and things like that, at the end of the day, these projects come down and the success of them comes down to the people and the
yep,
team and the dynamic that you are able to build. So many of these, deployments or implementations, whatever you call them, you're not going to have an expert within your organization that has done this, 50 times.
yeah,
But you do have A players who say, all right, give me the ball. I'm going to run with it. Even if I don't know what I'm doing, I know how to ask for help and I know how to communicate
Yeah.
with people. And
Yeah.
that's really when you're thinking about success, even as a project, you want to get the A team, and the A team isn't always the one who's, has like all of this like
Yeah.
specific experience. It's the one who's ready to take on a new task and can work well with others.
Hey, just while we're on that subject, right? You look at a lot of these implementations. What do you see as some of the characteristics of the companies that are getting a lot of success, more so than those that aren't? Like, what are the maybe couple of things that you see very common in the
Yeah.
way they approach it?
I think they keep the project very simple in terms of
Hmm.
they know what the after picture looks like. And I think about it like this way. Sometimes I go to get my hair cut and I'm trying to describe like, oh, I want it to look like this. And then my
Yeah.
my hairdresser will say, well, do you have a picture? And it's like, oh, and then the light bulb goes off. And I think
Yeah.
the same thing with these business transformations is you want to start having what the end picture looks like. So
Yeah. A
sketch
vision.
out that after picture and then work backwards from there. So I think the ones who are really successful are number one who have done that and they had a really clear set of expectations as to what this project was going to be and had a specific time frame, budget, and then backed into it. It made it a lot easier to sort of eat the elephant,
Yeah.
and find the right partner because they had sort of created that roadmap internally themselves before they start, all of a sudden these partner selection processes.
Yeah.
That can, that can end up getting bigger than broad box if you really don't know what you want.
Yeah.
It has a couple of clear ideas. I think that's really good. The other aspect to it is I think that they're the firms that really puts a team in place that understands how to get a project done and they have good executive leadership that they're working with and stakeholders to make sure that project is successful. And they're very clear about the change management process. They're very clear about communicating the expectations of what the project is, not at the beginning of the project, but at the beginning, plus
Yeah.
throughout the project and keeping things on track. So I would say
Governance.
that governance and
Yeah.
the right team, but the right team and the right team that doesn't turn over is the other thing. That is the key to it. It's your players that really can work together with your software vendor and your SI, and can if there's going to be a failure that you fail fast and you address a problem before it snowballs.
Yeah.
That's a lot of things. That's a
It
lot of
is.
Yeah.
things, but I would say,
Yeah.
like, if I had to, like, look back at all of we have 4,500 projects that we've, had reviewed, on our system. Those are the common themes, and
Agreed.
I can recite those in my sleep.
Yeah, and that aligns to my research. I mean, I added some element of this into my work with payroll transformation because so many companies are like, "Oh, we're transforming," and then you start to talk to them, and you're like, "Well, where are you headed? What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I'm glad to see there's more folks that are having a vision for these things because you're right. It's like they're out there just doing and not necessarily. It's like a what's that saying? It's like ready, fire, aim, and then they need to be ready, aim, fire. And I think there needs to be more of that. So yeah, good to hear. So look, I want to talk about ERP. I want to talk about what's going on. I know you stay very close to that. You and I overlap at a few of the events for some of the big vendors, but there seems to be a resurgence, right? Like I feel like we went very kind of trendy. It's like we leaned into the best of breed and integrate everything, and now it seems like we're coming back to the all-in-one ERP. We've seen some of the big providers, Workday, leaning into ERP now when they maybe shied away from it in the past. SAP's kind of gone, you know, started to push their event together where now you're seeing success or SAP Connect, not Success Factor, Success Connect. So you're going to market more as just ERP, not just, but more holistically. But what's going on? Like, what's the state of ERP right now? Why is it peaking?
Well, I think it's the catalyst to it is AI and
Yeah,
everyone realizing that in order to have a was an omniscient AI, I guess, or an
yeah,
AI that is can draw from multiple pools of data that you collectively have to have the data in a place that can be queried and
right.
is all part of the same system and provisioned and all of that. And so it really lends itself to, as you have a solution that is integrated across finance, supply chain, HR, business, et cetera, that now you can put AI tools to work and query information and get information
Yeah.
dynamically across the suite. And so I think it's really AI that's driving people toward that. It's not that it's not possible
Agreed.
using a best of breed solution, but there's just more work, more provisioning, and more spaghetti, I guess,
Yeah.
when you're having to link these systems as opposed to just a singular one.
Yeah, that data part of it, right? I mean, I think everybody's got to get their data in line to be able to begin to do foundationally what they want for AI. And I think that's a big part of why you're seeing more of the all in one again.
I think that kind of ties a little bit to all this data theme ties to the whole idea of roles based security because just being
Hmm.
able to inherit or use the same roles based security model across this broader data ecosystem brings a lot more advantages than I think anybody really quantifies.
Yeah, and I think too, like as we've heard, Julie, like I think companies probably are understanding that they can't do AI in a silo against, they need to do it more at an enterprise level. At least is what seems like to me. I haven't spent a lot of time researching it specifically, but if I'm reading between the lines on some of the polarizing research that's come out, I think it's the ones that aren't doing so well are the ones that are kind of have these nascent little fractional AI work going on, but no one's really coordinating it and maybe doing it at a higher level. So yeah, look, I just came back from Workday, and I thought one of the Workday Rising in EMEA, and we're going to recap here soon on an episode for us as a news episode. But Bonnie, one of the things I thought was interesting was just that Workday is really leaning into ERP more, whereas before it seemed like they were kind of leaning away from that. Again, SAP is doing their thing, but what are your thoughts on some of the big guys, big firms, and how they're sort of evolving in that way?
Well, it used to be that ERP was almost like a legacy word, like that was dated.
Yeah, that was kind of some of the comments in Barcelona was like, hey, we're darned if we do it. Carl Eschenbach, the CEO of Workday, said, look, we're kind of darned if we do. If we call it ERP, you're going to say it's outdated. If we don't call it ERP, we're not, we're not in ERP. So what do we do?
Right. From a financials perspective, their total addressable market is not, is going to be fractional if they don't have the financials
Yeah,
and, the other parts of the solution to compete against the Oracles and SAPs of the world. So, it does make sense that they call it an ERP. And I think that, honestly, for as long as that word has been around, I mean, it is sort of descriptive as to what it is.
I think everyone's going to have this agentic AI sort of launch pad, right? I mean, just AI generally, in order to sort of function the enterprise, but also interoperably work with the things that it needs for its industry and for its people, right? Whether that's Microsoft or ServiceNow or whatever the case may be. So I think when you look at the way everybody's kind of positioned themselves, it's like this layer, more than a layer, but this thing that is going to be the epicenter for driving the enterprise,
Yeah. Well, I
right?
mean,
Like it always should have been.
for sure. And, if
Yeah,
ER was the backbone, AI is really becoming like the nervous system. It's the
yeah,
thing that senses, interprets, recommends. And, if all that it's able to draw off of is, an arm or a leg, that's not very,
yeah,
very smart system. So all of this to say, I think the idea of the complete suite is having an AI system that can draw from data across the
yeah.
suite, it's a huge driver, I think, back to best of suite, or I'm sorry, full suite.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there are even, I mean, even to some extent, like I was writing recently some series of articles about EOR, Julie, and how I think that it could become almost like a little fabric layer, data fabric layer in the HCM world, helping with talent decisions and compliance. And I think you could argue that for a lot of solutions that are out there that they could play in the ERP in an embedded way and still be a part of a bigger picture. In the same way, I think multi parts of HCM and other areas could do the same thing. So.
I want to know,
Data sharing.
this rejuvenated ERP, interest and focus. Is it also pre-COVID at ISG? We used to have a practice that dealt with the expanded SaaS modules into financials and supply chain and some of these other areas. So we tried internally to call it SaaS ERP or cloud ERP. Bonnie, is it your experience that kind of this rejuvenation comes along with all of these things being in a newer cloud model, or is that Is that just an aspiration still?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You bring up the word SaaS and it's like, yeah, we're sort that's not as much a thing anymore. But like I think the assumption is like, of course it's cloud, right? So
Right.
Yeah.
it's less about, it's assumed that your system is in the cloud and the ERP is just a description of the connection and the single platform experience that
Yeah.
you have as opposed to where it is as a in the cloud or on
Yeah.
public, private,
Coming back to this the workday thing, let's use them as the example, is right. And again, I'm on the website now, so I'm just confirming the way they use the wording here. Next gen ERP for the AI era. What I think is interesting is like what I'm kind of curious about now is like clearly the UI is going to break down at some point, right? And it's going to be zero UI. We're going to be talking, conversating, whatever. There's so much conversational capabilities there now. Who's going to win? Like, what's going to be the doorway? Everybody wants to be the front door, right? Dayforce is talking about being the front door. Workday's talking about it. ServiceNow probably would argue they want to be the front door, right? Who's going to win for the worker, the everyday worker UI, right? Like, where are you going to start your path, or does it matter? Are you just going to speak to whatever your AI is, and it's going to go figure out what system to go and get the information from?
yeah. I mean, I think the one who wins is the one who can make it completely frictionless for the
Yeah,
employee to get the best information. So and the easiest. So I
yeah.
think
Because it shouldn't matter. They shouldn't know.
For sure.
Part of that too is just an element of like, what does the client have? Everybody has a different set of things, tools in their toolbox, and so what wins for you might be different than what wins for someone else. And it is all about like how big is the house you have to move from one
Yeah.
place to the other, right? Like
Well,
maybe the winning solution, is the one that fits the needs and the budget and the timeline
yeah.
and then
Well,
that's a good first
if
start.
you look closely and you listen to the way they're all talking, there's an interoperability play that's happening too, saying, "Hey, we play well with fill in the blank, Slack, Microsoft, ServiceNow, whatever, Salesforce." Right? You have to play nice with everyone now. It feels like because the customer's expecting that they're using a stack and they want to be able to make sure it all talks to each other. You can't. I don't think you can do that anymore.
Right. Well, like
You got to be open.
the metaphor that I love is like that swivel chair where,
Yeah.
the guy goes over here to, do his HR and he
Yes.
swivels
Yes.
over here to do his expense management reports and he swivels over here, to
Yeah.
log into, his project management system. I mean, so like, I think those days are, or your phone that has
Yeah.
15 different apps. I think that more and more that there's going to be a consolidation of it and maybe those vendors will still run all of those components, but hopefully that'll
Yeah.
decrease the amount of applications that are required to find and do what you need to do to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's funny though, because every single study that's come out, every 5 years or so, the number of apps that we work with every day is
Oh
just
yeah.
exponentially larger. So it's like,
Think it's
I
over
don't know,
15
is
now,
this a
right?
holy grail thing that I don't know if we're ever gonna hit,
Right. Or you go into an organization, you're like, what HR system do you have or what's your core
Yeah.
HR? And they're like, well, we have UKG for this and we have Workday for this and we use, SAP success factors for this and Oracle for, this. And it's like, oh, okay. I mean, the average is like 14, but
It
you just
is. It
covered all
is.
your bases here. You got every major one.
Yeah. And my son, I asked him, the other day, I was like, did you fill out your 401k thing? He's got a job where he could do 401k. And I said, he said, Dad, I don't know where to go to do it. Because we have like 5 systems. And I said, well, have you talked to your manager? He's like, he has no idea. So I was like, okay, well, if you talk to HR, if you called
That
someone,
that
help, get
hurts.
someone
That
help.
hurts us, HR,
But he was like,
hurts us,
ChatGPT.
wounded deeply by this.
but his age group and mindset is like, I'm not dealing with that nonsense. But now, obviously, he knows he's sacrificing value, so he wants to go pursue that. But I think in his brain, in their brains, like that's so friction to your point that like it's not worth the effort, right? They're not going to go fill out their performance thing if it's not worth the effort. And you've got to go through some sort of a obstacle course to get to it, you know. So yeah. So Bonnie, I want to kind of flip script here because one of the things that you've probably seen and I've heard every vendor say is this investment in ROI and speed to market, right? Getting live faster, right? You got Workday Go as an example. You've got other solutions that are now that's mid market specific, but there are other. Everyone is trying to utilize AI and process improvement and automation and data movement to fundamentally help customers alleviate the cost and time frames of getting live. Is that coming to market, and how is that playing out for the SIs? That's a competition in some ways to them, right? There's been a lot of need for this load of consultants to help you get onto these systems. That's been a big business. Like how's that impacting? Like, is that actually coming to the customers, and how is that impacting the SI world?
Yeah, I have not yet seen um, implementations that are less expensive as a result of AI enabling some sped up process. With we'll use the Workday Go, or it used to
Yeah,
be called Launch, and uh, every vendor had a rapid
yeah.
implementation
Turnkey. It's a
methodology.
turnkey solution.
That's
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right. Model company at SAP. I mean, there's a lot then, and a lot of
yeah,
iterations over time. I mean, since I started this business 8 years ago, that was even a thing, like this rapid deployment.
yeah,
Even back then. So this is not a new idea, but I think customers now see this promise of AI being so significant that they want to get there faster. So it's like,
sure.
what can you give me that is
Yeah.
going to help
And
me?
the vendors want them faster too.
Oh,
They
yes,
want
they
them
do.
live as fast as
Yeah.
possible. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And that is, I mean, that's sort of like,
Yeah.
an age-old need. With that said, I think that more and more of these implementations are able to improve in terms of documentation, communication. There's more ability to come up with a starting point in terms
Mhm.
of a blueprint because of the functionality of generative AI, and then that's been a huge help.
Yeah.
Change management, training, rollout, communication to your employees, all of those things, I think, there's been significant improvements there. So I think from
Yeah.
a overall quality perspective that things are going up. The SIs are not are implementation, the margins are so thin anyways.
Yeah.
SIs are not about to say, "Oh, okay, well, it's only
Yeah.
costing us now 75% to deliver these services. We're only gonna charge 75%." Instead, what they're doing is saying, "All right, well, what are the additional, how can we make up that time and more value added services?" So maybe
Yeah.
a cost neutral thing, but we're providing a more competitive type of service. That
Yeah.
I'm seeing more so than, hey, we're getting so many more, deals done faster at a less cost because of AI. That I don't think anybody
Not
wants
yet.
to leave money on the
Yeah.
table right now,
Yeah.
um, despite some of these concepts. And I've heard a ton. So
Of promises too, man. There's a lot of promises. Yeah.
I haven't seen a single review that has
Yeah.
shown these rapid deployments
I
have,
think
like,
it's still early.
it is
I
still
think it's
early
still
days.
early.
It
Yeah.
is, and I think I mean, if somebody can solve it, wow, that's
Yeah.
an amazing problem, and I've had 2 small businesses actually pitch me on this
Yeah.
last month or so. Really, smart young entrepreneurs backing
Yeah.
from, Meta, et cetera, or ex-Meta associates. And so I think they have a lot of great ideas,
Yeah.
but are they able to actually put that into practice for enterprise-sized businesses?
We'll see. Yeah.
We will see. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not yet, though.
Yeah, I do love it for data movement. We are already there with some really good time savings anyway. I'm not never mind the cost savings. I don't know what that'll actually do. I don't know why I said that honestly, but I know the productivity and the speed and the time savings should be helpful. But yeah, I think data movement is huge. Especially think back to your payroll conversion, right? I mean, a mid-quarter conversion was an absolute nightmare, fearful. You're fearful of that back in the day. Now, there's solutions out there that can legitimately help you get that in and done in minutes, right? And
And
and be able to start testing that data.
data disparity and
Yeah.
cleanup, right? You
Yeah.
give a system a ton of disparate data and say, clean this up, make this all consistent. I mean,
Yeah.
that would have taken us 2 days in the past, or the
Right.
customer 2 days.
Reconciling. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can get it done
Mapping.
in 2 minutes now. So it's like that data cleanse part, which
Yep.
is so thorny. All of a sudden that goes away, and that's, I mean, that's a huge
Yeah.
win.
Bunny, I know you're like the watcher of the SIs, right? Like the idea that that you get some intel on how they're performing and how they're evolving. But I run into fairly regularly the preconceived notion that it would be better to have the software company prime its own implementation than to have to go choose an SI partner to do that. And in some ecosystems you can't, right? And in other
Well,
ecosystems that's possible, or they do it, for some percentage. That percentage of their strategy seems to shift, back and forth depending on,
yeah,
exactly how
there's a
they're evolving.
conundrum there though for the vendor
There
because
is, and so
they have to scale. They can't scale without the help. They have to have help.
yeah, they have to
You know?
have help, but I also think there's a little bit of a perception there. I think there's a cost differential that's probably somewhat real, but I
Yeah,
also think that the perception that the quality is better because they know their product better.
yeah,
I always feel like that's a misnomer. They're not the ones implementing most often and developing tools and the IP and and the resources focused on that. What do you see in that space, or does your tracking kind of also cover some of the providers priming their own implementations?
There are some software vendors that do that prime process. Let me tell you what the disadvantage of is for that is that software vendors want to sell more software. And so it is very easy for them to have a bias towards SIs who sell
Oh, yeah.
more revenue for them. And so despite the quality that they bring in, they will overlook that and gift
yeah,
especially the GSIs with opportunities that they can walk in the door because they're so important to the sales revenue number. So
yeah,
that's part of the issue. Are there, ways that they can get around that and say, oh, well, we have delivery assurance and, we're monitoring these and we hold our partners to high standards. That's nice, but, it's a very much a sort of an insular sort of perspective, and it does not give the customer a choice in really finding the best fit for them. It's the best fit for the software vendor, but it is not the best fit necessarily for the customer.
yeah,
I, I think that there's a lot more success when a customer makes their own selection process, and maybe they'll call in the couple of SIs that the software vendor recommends, but they're also broadening
hmm,
who they're inviting in as well. And, in so many cases, we see the customer will start with one vendor, or I'm sorry, one SI that the vendor has brought in, and then we'll switch them
I've seen that.
midstream or in phase two because it just didn't work out.
Yeah,
And some customers don't even know that they have a choice, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
But, I mean, also from a competitive standpoint, price-wise, I mean, those guys are lazy. Why do they need to give you the best deal if they're not competing against
yeah,
other vendors? And,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we see in general, there is no correlation between a brand, of a big GSI and satisfaction and success. There's no correlation to those names and positive results. It's in the
yeah,
inverse. The best results that we see are from, the mid-size independent firms who were selected based on, the best fit for a particular project, areas
yeah,
of expertise in industry and things like that. So
yeah. That's
Oh,
great.
yeah. So all of this to say, customers, do your own homework.
Yeah.
Don't just go with who your software vendor recommends because chances are that's the guy who's, sponsoring the rock band at the customer conference or just bought the sales
Yeah,
rep a
yeah,
steak
yeah.
dinner. So
What would you say are some of the emerging sort of methods that you see out there that are really you think are really differentiating some of these firms that you're talking about? Anything you seen coming around?
yeah,
Not who, but just sort of the way they work or what they do.
yeah. I mean, first of all, they do an amazing job at hiring and retention, right?
Hmm.
Because these professional services firms, their people are their product. And the best ones are the ones who have the consultants who have been with them for 5+ years. And we look at the average churn rate on the consulting team um, on projects, and where there's churn, those projects are rated the lowest, where they have people in consulting
Yeah.
team churn. That's a real problem. So you want a partner that has a good culture and can really point to reviews that will show like consistency over time.
Yeah.
Not the ones that have, you know, 3 5-star reviews over a 2-month period of time. They're the ones that have 200 reviews over the last 3 years, and you see the same names popping up and up and up. So, they're the
Yep.
ones who cultivate a great culture and train everybody to have a standard sort of follow-up cadence, etcetera. There's a
Yeah.
rigor around their teams.
Yep.
That I think is the culture of a firm is so apparent in what I see on these reviews. And
Yeah.
they have the reviews that have a recognized consultant name in there and say, "Hey, our success was this particular person
Yeah.
identifying our needs, communicating clearly, and working with us as an extension of our team." I mean, it's
Yeah.
those firms. I mean, it's easy to spot from a mile away. It's not just like, "Oh, this project was great." It was, "Here's why it was great. It was this particular person who helped us do these things." And again, I can name you a whole bunch of
Yeah.
guys in every partner
That's great.
ecosystem who have that.
What advice would you have to customers who are out there selecting an SI right now? What would you tell them to be looking for in this sort of market when it comes to picking one?
So in the past, I think the differentiator for an SI was their brand, right?
Yeah.
How many accolades that they had, like how many awards from the part or from the software vendor.
From the vendors. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now it is proof. It is actual customer outcomes. That is the gold. That's what you want to search for. Again, the product of a professional service firm is their customers and the success of their projects. It's the people that they put in front of you as a
Yeah.
customer that are basically going to ensure your success. And if they cannot specifically point to outcomes of other customers like you in your industry, in the size of
Yes.
client that you are, in the type of software that you're looking for, run, run.
Yeah.
Because there's a
Agreed.
lot out there that say, "Oh, we're an XYZ partner. We're a gold partner." I don't even think that's a term anymore, but
Yeah. I
they'll
know.
tell you how close they are to their software vendor and how much their software vendor loves them. That doesn't even matter. What
Yeah.
matters is how many customers love them, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you want to vet those actual customer outcomes. You can do that through reviews. You want solid reference calls, and you really need to ask the hard questions about who's my team going to be. Are you going to ensure that once I sign, the same team that you brought in is going
Right.
to be assigned to me as well? Those are the things that I would.
And stay with you through the project, right? I've been hearing some of that lately, Julie. I don't know
Me
about
too.
you, but I've heard a couple of major projects where some of these bigger firms laid off people during the project kickoff or like some mid phase, important milestone. And the client's like, where are my consultants?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I got a friend who had to pull the nose up on one of those. And she was like, it was the worst.
We
It's a
also
lot of
do
craziness going on.
when we do the SI selections, just because the big guys want to compete and put their hat in
Yeah.
the ring. They don't want to do the RFP for it, right? So we end up doing a
Yeah.
fair number of those. And beyond the references, interviewing your team, the key roles on your team, is such a huge a bit of insight. And then, yeah, as you say, like this is my team, right? This isn't this
Yeah.
isn't just a representative team that you're giving me.
Well, it's a long process on some of these, and you got to have continuity. I mean, I worked on a major implementation at Disney then, but thankfully we had a lot of continuity with the people. I don't know how we would have done it looking back if everybody would have rolled in and out all the time. Would have been rough. But Bonnie, just kind of coming back to this point, right, about AI, I think we kind of got on. Like how do you see the AI kind of helping the SI world and the client as well? I mean, obviously data movement was one. And I think certainly it has to be the path for them to improve their margins. What do you see as far as AI in that side of the
Yeah.
business?
I would say the largest, most significant impact is on the effort of change management. And I
Mm,
actually
okay.
just interviewed a UKG SI, the CEO of one of the very large implementers of UKG,
Hmm.
who talked about how they are able to customize training videos for their every single client. And
Mm,
they even started referring to
wow.
this SI as an agency, right? So
Wow.
they so could embody the brand of the customer and roll out these training and communication videos about the project that it like significantly aided the adoption of the software
I
and
love that.
the rollout of it. And so the idea of change management, that is such a big, expensive, and difficult
Yeah.
area to manage. And generative AI has really helped come up with amazing content that they can then, put into role-based documentation and training. They can really do very industry-specific training, even embody the brand and the
Hmm.
culture so fast and
I
easy.
love that. Yeah,
And
that's cool because we
yeah,
see so many cut that, right? Cut your change management out and cut all that, and that's the part that you can't skimp on. Yeah, and if you can make that, more personalized, less expensive, and affordable, more companies will lean. So I love that.
for
What?
sure.
Anything else?
So, I think we talked a little bit about it before. The synthesization or whatever that word is, right? The amalgamation of meeting notes and
Hmm.
project plans and, um, the email exchanges that go back and forth between
Right.
under the SI and the customer, right? So there's like three parties there. um, I think one of the really neat things that I've seen lately, there's a company called Axiomatic that does just this, that basically synthesizes all of the meeting notes,
Mm,
anything that is done, and it puts it into this knowledge base that can be queried. So if you are an
nice.
executive and you want to say what happened at the last meeting that I missed, are we on track for this project? You can ask those simple questions and have it interpret mountains of communication
That's
and data.
wonderful.
It is
Yeah.
so cool. I love the idea because part of the, difficulty with these projects is that like everything happens individually in silos
Yeah.
so often. And how can you bring all of those things into a singular system that's real time? Well, being able to capture everything, sort of almost
Yeah.
all of this asynchronous work and have it in a single place that can be queried. I think it's an incredible tool. So just meeting
Yeah.
and things like that to streamline the process. Axiomatic also just did an interview with the CEO of that company. I think there's a ton of promise there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I can sit here and think about projects that I've been on where there are those little exchanges where that's something we probably should document and create an SOP out of, but we just didn't have time. They're piling up, and yeah, now you've got agentic that can go and crawl that and take that data and turn it into something. So yeah, very very cool. So Bonnie, look, I want to get you out of here. I know I could keep going on and on with you riffing, but tell me, how can customers maybe access your insights? Are buyers able to go and download maybe some reviews on different vendors that they're exploring, or how do they get in touch with what you do over at Raven?
Absolutely. Ravenintel.com is a free and available resource to you. You can come in, you can read over 4,500 reviews that we have publicly available on our site. If you've recently
Yeah,
done a project and you want to review your SI, everybody wants to know about that. Other customers, your software vendor, you can easily write a review. As easy as it is to do an Amazon review, you can do a review on ravenintel.com as well, right from our homepage. So it is open, it is available. Please use it. You can get in contact with us right there if you have a question or a specific need that you don't see an answer for. We are here to help, and we are a free service to customers to help them make a great buying decision.
yeah. No, you have very unique data, and I'll second that. I've had a couple of customers over my career who were using your service, and I thought very highly of it. So you do great work, and it's listen,
That's
like you
right.
said, it's open source. Like get in there and learn. Right, if you're looking at a certain platform, go check it out, and make sure you follow Bonnie on LinkedIn, on Twitter, I believe as well. You on Twitter?
I am. I
Yes.
am. Yes.
What's your handle?
Be Tinder.
All right, Be Tinder. You'll find her also at LinkedIn. And Bonnie, thank you so much. I'm almost thinking we need to do this on an annual basis, an ERP pulse check. You do such great work in that world. So thank you so much. We appreciate you, and thank you to everyone. Look, stay with us. We got a lot coming. Like, share, subscribe, rate us if you can, and yeah, we'll be back really soon.